Hello, BookTube. I went out again today, and of course, because I left the house, I accumulated books. And I thought I'd show them to you. A pile of books that I need like another hole in the head. But they were going a begging, so I grabbed them. I figure I'll find out what to do with them or get rid of them myself some other time. The first one is a UK mass market of Tom Clancy's seminal novel, The Hunt for Red October, that I haven't read in quite some time, so I thought I'd use this as an opportunity to just read it again, see this book that caught the publishing world by storm. Then a UK mass market of P.D. James, perfect for March Mystery Madness. This is An Unsuitable Job for a Woman, that I remember really liking when I read it eons ago. Do I even want to know? 1972. I've never read it since, and I love P.D. James, so there's really no excuse for that. And I love this neat little mass market paperback, even though I'm not a big fan of them anymore. And then talk about mass market paperback. This is that larger prestige size mass market paperback, 2312 by Kim Stanley Robinson. That is, it's big and operatic. It is really space opera, although he would not like that. He would not like that description, I don't think, at all. And it's poetic. And it starts off in a great way with a group of tourists on the planet Mercury waiting for sunrise, which on Mercury, as he describes it, you're on a pebble next to a star, is an overwhelming experience. At one point, he talks about how some of these tourists are caught so totally by surprise that they freeze in wonder and are cooked alive in their suits. Or their suits malfunction one way or the other, and that this happens routinely in every tourist season. And he writes, "Do you imagine they must have been fools? Do you think that you would never have made such a mistake? Don't be too sure. Really, you have no idea. It's like nothing you've ever seen. You may think you are inured, that nothing outside the mind can really interest you anymore, as sophisticated and knowledgeable as you are. But you would be wrong. You are a creature of the sun. The beauty and terror of it seen from so close can empty any mind, thrust anyone into a trance. It's like seeing the face of God, some people say, and it is true that the sun powers all living creatures in the solar system, and that, in a sense, it is our God. The sight of it can strike thought clean out of your head. People seek it out precisely for that." I had problems with some of the plot of this book, but I thought it was tremendously ambitious. I remember loving it, so I'm gladly read it again now that I got a free copy. And then another free copy. This is Game of Thrones, a BookTube darling. This is the mass market with the original artwork that was replaced for a long time after that. The mass markets came out with just bland monocolored covers with tracings on them. This is an actual piece of fantasy art. So when I saw it, I grabbed it, even though I'm not as big a fan of the novel as other people. It seemed a shame for it to be thrown away. And then a hardcover. This is by Don Stapp. This is Bird Song, which is a natural history of and an examination of the science and the meaning of why birds sing. All the different reasons why birds sing and all the different ways they do. And I don't remember ever reading this when I would think it's right up my alley. So it was one of the finds of the day, because I want to read this right away. Then this next one I have read. I read it back when it first came out, which was in the 70s. And I liked it. And I have reason to read it again because I'm writing on this subject today. And this is Christopher Hibbert. This is the House of Medici, its rise and fall, with the signature is, their emblem is this way on the front. And it's just a soup to nuts story about the Medici family, and I'm reviewing the latest one of those, and I'm writing that review today. And I thought I would read through this first, just because when I've been working on my review, I've been thinking about this book. So it was amazing that I found it for free. That I've been thinking about it and trying to remember. Okay, well, this is what there was a famous Medici biographer named Colonel Young from a century ago, whose work I know really well. His book on them I know really well. And then there's this modern book, and as I've been working on the review, I've kept wondering, well, okay, but you remember Christopher Hibbert saying something different on this particular point. What was it? And I'm going to need to reference this book anyway in my review, because any reader, I mean, my review will be halfway pitched for readers who don't know anything about the history of the Medici family, where I will tell them a little about that history and tell them about this book. But the other half of my readers are going to be people who do know about the Medici and who know not only Young's book, but Hibbert's book. And one of their first and most natural questions is going to be, how is this book different from those two? And so I wanted to be able to address it in some detail, and so I couldn't pass it up. But this next one, I don't know what to make of this next one. It's ugly, first of all. It looks self-published. I've never heard of it, and it's talk about right up my alley. Oh my. The author is Gordon Punter, and the book is Murder Most Foul, with a little tag at the bottom saying not for the squeamish. And as you can tell, it's a Sherlock Holmes novel. It's a Sherlock Holmes novel in which Holmes confronts the mystery of Jack the Ripper, 1888 Whitechapel. And it's heavily footnoted. It's fiction, but it's heavily footnoted. The author clearly went to a lot of research trouble. And I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what to make of anything so singular and hideous as this. But not only am I a dyed-in-the-wool fan of Sherlock Holmes, but I also have read everything that has ever been written about Jack the Ripper, and I'm amazed that I've never heard of this thing. So it goes to the front of the line for reading. Then I got something just because, I mean, it's not in the best of shape, but I got it just because it was going to be thrown away, and I'm thinking I can probably find somebody who might want to read it. It's Joe Baker's great novel, Longbourn, this is in the paperback, and it's about it's a large chunk of the story of Pride and Prejudice, only told from the viewpoint of the servants, who flit in and out of Jane Austen's novel without making any impression whatsoever. And I remember when I first read this, I was blown away by it. It's tremendously good. But when I first read it, I was embarrassed to realize that I wasn't quite sure I even remembered the names of the servants at Longbourn in Pride and Prejudice, and or anything about them. And that was embarrassing. And I went back to Pride and Prejudice. Of course, I don't need any impetus whatsoever to reread Pride and Prejudice. And realized they're there. They're all throughout. And I also realized why they make no impression on the narrative whatsoever. Because to Jane Austen herself, they were furniture. It wasn't an authorial decision on her part like so much else is in Pride and Prejudice. Instead, it was an authorial assumption that she was unaware of, and it totally imprinted itself on me. So that was a revelation anyway, even apart from how wonderful the book is. And then there's this thing. This is in rotten shape as well, but I will fix it. This is a book that I just mentioned the other day. This is The Nature of Alexander by Mary Renault. This is, for a while, there was a fad of taking biographies and making them in these bigger, heavily illustrated versions. A fad that I kind of like. And I saw this, and I saw that it was going to be thrown away, and I thought, okay, but I don't quite remember if I currently own a copy of The Nature of Alexander, and I want to, and so I grabbed it. And when I got back here, I checked my shelves, and I don't. The Nature of Alexander is one of those books that I tend to mail out to people as soon as I find a copy, and I don't currently have one, so now I do. So I will take time to lovingly restore this, and then this will just go on the shelf, and I will mentally exempt it from sending out. It won't look like anything that I would want to send out anyway, and it'll just be my copy, and then I'll just start from scratch with all the others. And then the last batch of things that I got on this little perambulation are Penguin Classics. I got 5 Penguin Classics. The first one, heartbreaking, The Street of Crocodiles. And this also contains Under the Sign of the Sanatorium. But this is by Bruno Schultz. Short stories. This has also his illustrations. Let me see if I can show you one of those. And he's brilliant, even in translation. And it's also tragic to read him because he was shot offhandedly in the street by a Gestapo agent in World War II, just because he had ventured out of his Jewish ghetto. He'd set foot on the wrong street and was shot dead for no other reason than that, because to the man who shot him, who couldn't compose a short story to save his life, Bruno Schultz was vermin. But I'm glad to have the book. I don't have any Bruno Schultz, and now I do, and I have it in Penguin Classic. And then the next four are a tough sell on BookTube. They're my bread and butter, but they're a tough sell on BookTube. First one is a beautiful, pristine copy, Penguin Classic, of Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. And then the next one is a pristine Penguin Classic of The Bride of Lammermoor by Sir Walter Scott. Look at that. Look at how lovely that is. And then the next one is a pristine trade paperback of Guy Mannering by Sir Walter Scott. And then the last one is a pristine trade paperback of Kenilworth by Sir Walter Scott, with a Edwin Landseer cover, no less. So I got a bunch of Walter Scott in Penguin Classics that will go right up on the Penguin wall. I think the only thing I have there is a mass market of Ivanhoe. So now I have, major novels. I wish that I'd found a bunch more. I wish that I'd found, Old Immortality or whatever. But I'll take these as a starting point, absolutely, especially since they haven't been touched. They haven't been read at all. They're in perfect condition, no matter how old they are. So there you have it. Let's see if we can do a pyramid of these just a random book haul that I got because I can't stop doing that. This was The Nature of Alexander, then The House of Medici, then Murder Most Foul, Sherlock Holmes and Jack the Ripper, then Birdsong, then Longbourn, Joe Baker's novel about the servants in Pride and Prejudice, an amazingly eye-opening piece of fiction that I strongly recommend and would be happy to send to one of you. Then a bunch of can we really do this? A bunch of Sir Walter Scott. Then the one volume of Bruno Schultz that the Nazis allowed us to have. Then Game of Thrones. Then Kim Stanley Robinson. An Unsuitable Job for a Woman. And The Hunt for Red October. So there you go. Another pile of books that I don't need. But I'm not going anywhere tomorrow. So I won't be acquiring any books at all tomorrow. So I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.